Friday, 21st of November 2025. And this is papertrail.com, a daily streaming all about governance, risk, and compliance in the UK for SMEs and mid-market firms. Last week, we spoke about directors, boards, and companies' compliance risks, as well as some of the potential consequences for individuals and companies. And this week, we are reviewing risk treatments. So yesterday we covered risk treatment with contracts, and today we turn into risk acceptance. And we will finish next week on Monday with risk reductions, or where the day-to-day controls do the heavy lifting in terms of risk treatments. Today's topic is how to know when to accept risk and stop over-engineering. And sometimes you over-engineer things that actually doesn't deserve the time or the resources. And don't worry about acronyms. They are all explained during the streaming. And this is not a complete guide, neither legal advice. Always look for specialists and professionals in the areas you need them, although I'll focus on reviewing three main problems today. So let's set the scenario, if you may. What does treatment risk with acceptance mean? In layman's terms, it accepts and keeps the exposure and tracks it. An example is accept a low impact risk that follows or falls within the organization risk appetite. So you should have a risk appetite threshold, if you may. So three problems with this in terms of risk acceptance. Number one is many SMEs and mid-market companies accept risk by doing nothing and hoping for the best. There is no risk register entry, no rationale, no check back. There's nothing. So that is not acceptance. That is unmanaged exposure. And we spoke yesterday and the day before about managing and non-managing exposure. So unmanaged exposure could be considered, and I open brackets here, negligent, and but managed exposure is something that you do consciously, and you have a risk profile or risk appetite thresholds, and then you decide if it's in that threshold, yes or no. Problem number two is that boards are expected to maintain sound risk management and internal controls. So you cannot meet that expectations if nobody can show which risk you keep on purpose, why, and at what level. Remember the thresholds that we mentioned? And problem number three is that the health and safety executive uses the test of what is reasonable, practicable. So in time, trouble and cost of a measure are grossly disproportionate to the risk. So if your efforts and resources to control the risk is too big compared to the risk itself, you may leave the residual risk in place, but you must be able to justify the decision. Hope it makes sense. But I'll give you an example to make it way much easier to understand. Accepting risk is like choosing to drive at 30 miles per hour in a built-up area, right? So you know where the residual danger is, but you follow the rules, maintain the car and that is the right speed, and decide the remaining risk is part of everyday life. So with this means that you know the rules, you know how to justify what you do, and you follow that so you're managing is an acceptance that will be a risk there because you don't know these things are jumping straight in front of you and you cannot control that. But it's an accepted risk if you follow the basic rule, which is this area, I cannot go faster than 30 miles per hour. So 3 points or 3 ideas, not 3 ideas, three considerations, suggestions to treat risk with acceptance. Number one is start with a join up risk register, which is impact, which is a likelihood, and detection difficulty. And we're going to talk about detection difficulty in further live streams. Plus, a clear risk appetite band agreed by leadership. Remember the thresholds? Risks that sit inside that band after sensible controls can be candidates for acceptance, so no further treatment. Solution or suggestion number 2, apply the reasonable practicable lens. If any extra control costs far more in time disruption or money than the risk itself, or the risk that removed, document why you're doing why you are not adding it into and reference to your appetite, and keep the risk under periodic review. And periodic review is go back to what we always mention here, which is cadence, or the automated or reminders that you should have every month, every quarter, semester, or yearly in terms of the things that have to be reviewed, checked, or revised or updated, whatever is the case. So suggestion number 3 is avoid this trap, the extremes. One is a zero risk thinking that leads to over-engineer and burn out. The other is a casual acceptance, which no review cycle. So write down who owns each accepted risk, how often you will review it, and which trigger event will force you to act, right? So we mentioned here 3 things actually in terms of governance, risk, and compliance, which is the requirement, which are the controls, and where is the evidence. And remember that evidence is, according to the regulator, is the best defensible position that you can have, is always evidence. So you can see there is complexity that start to build up, because we are talking about one risk, which is acceptance. We mentioned 5 risks in this week. We are already covering 4 of them. But at the same time, with all these things, you have all the compliance frameworks. So particularly with SMEs and mid-market companies, where there are no dedicated teams, officials, or personnel within the company to run these compliance requirements at the same time. And there are 16 of them. So you have the risk, but actually you have the compliance frameworks, health and safety, fire safety, DVCA for fleet management, GDPR, cybersecurity, cyber essentials, and so on and so forth. So no wonder 73% of the UK compliance or and risks, many times companies in the UK outsource or hire consultants or advisors or delegate to contractors. And this is according to the PwC report issued this year. So what should we be looking for? It's too busy, it's too complex, it's too time consuming. So I always mention in these live streams that you and your company should have a compliance baseline, or at least a baseline in mind, so you can hire on your own terms. So in terms of risk acceptance, what a baseline for yourself could look like, and these are 3 practical steps. So when you're going to go to outsource advisors, consultants, or contractors, which is the outcome that they are committing to or promising to you? So do they calculate risk scores and highlight which exposures sit inside your appetite once sensible controls are in place, or so you can accept them consciously instead of chasing marginal gains? So remember, actually, marginal gains is actually we have a risk and we are going to over-engineer resources, capital, etc., to manage a risk that actually has no meaning, no impact in your organization. Number 2 is what differentiators they are provided. Do you get a live risk register joined to evidence? Remember, requirements, controls, and evidence are the contracts and controls, and they are not static spreadsheets. A spreadsheet is not evidence, by the way. It could be a control piece, but it's not evidence. So, for example, when a plant, a fleet, or service is accepted, the rationale, owner, and review date are listed next to the supporting data. Remember? Requirement, control, evidence. Supporting data, evidence. Number 3 is what reduction or how they help you to reduce your risks. So acceptance is never do nothing and forget. Do they provide or structure scheduled reviews, track changes in impact and likelihood, and alert you when an acceptance risk drift outside the appetite? So remember the threshold. So up to this point, there is no problem. You can accept this as a risk, but if you go further than that particular line, then you have to review that so you can intervene before it becomes an incident. So one action that you can take today with this is pick one moderate recurrent issue today and write a short note on whether you are genuinely prepared to accept it as a current levels in your threshold or schedule reviews, or whether a straightforward control will push it back to inside the appetite so you don't have to do anything else until the next review in whatever is the cadence that you have, quarterly, semesterly, or yearly. Now, it's complicated, isn't it? So there's a faster, reliable, and easier way to do this, which is with PaperTrail, our software. You can create an evidence-backed risk register that clearly shows which risk you accept, why, and when those decisions must be revisited across your plants or your fleet or your service operations, or across the different organizations that you're managing. And all of them ready to demonstrate risk and evidence. We always do this, the same thing. So which is a requirement, which is a control, and which is the evidence. So you can stop activities that increase workload but add no value, increase your costs and labor hours expenses in just redundant work. So this PaperTrail, our software, is perfect for UK SMEs and mid-market because you use the same control libraries, not only for risk, also for health and safety, GDPR, DVCA for fleet management, cybersecurity, EPR for packaging. So you don't have to do double entries every time. This reduces the overlap by 60% and your costs by 80%. You have everything in one place. It's a continued gap analysis and a clear view of what's done, what is missing, who owns or who is responsible to fix things before any assurance, inspections, reports, or audits hits you. So you can do it once, do it properly, and move on to the things that are more important and interesting to you, which is grow your company and be more profitable. So join the waitlist, paytrail.com, and stay tuned because today we have drawn the line between unmanaged exposure and true documented acceptance. And next Monday, 24th, we are going to wrap up with risk reduction, where everyday controls do most of the real work, right? Fantastic. Have a great weekend